Annyeonghaseyo, and welcome to this very special event, The Future is Now, investing in young forestry professionals and career development. It is an event organized for and by young professionals, so we're honored to have all of you joining us in person and online, and look forward to your participation. I am Elaine Springay. I'm the agroforestry officer at FAO based in Rome, Italy, and I will be the moderator for the first hour or so of this 2.5-hour-long event. This is the first World Forestry Congress that has featured events specifically for young professionals. We are grateful to the Korea Forest Service and FAO for supporting this event and its speakers, and we hope this is the first of many WFCs to create a space for young professionals to network and showcase their expertise. A legacy, if you will. Throughout the Congress, we have heard from student representatives how the forest sector needs to be more inclusive of youth. Youth bring energy, innovation, and are change makers. Yet, youth feel excluded. They would like more employment opportunities, mentorship, and career development. At the same time, we need to ensure that we're not fostering generational division, the young versus the old. Each generation brings value to the table. In order to build a green, healthy, and resilient future with forests, the different generations need to recognize the strengths of the others and empower and support each other. Young professionals are a unique generation. They are both the forest sector's present and future. They already contribute their expertise and skills, and as future leaders are capable of addressing the demands of aspiring youth and students, thereby bridging generational divides. This special event for young professionals is divided into two parts. The first will showcase a sampling of our talented and inspiring young professionals. We will hear about their inspiration to join the forest sector, their professional journeys, and how they were able to overcome challenges and flourish in their careers. The second part will look at career development programs in the sector that invest in young professionals. We will hear about the impacts this has had not only on the young professionals, but also on the sector. The event will finish up with an intergenerational dialogue that will hopefully provide insights and recommendations on how we can better empower our youth and young professionals moving forward. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Lacey Rose, a county forester from Ontario, Canada, and a co-founder of the international network Women in Wood. She will be treating us with a tree talk, making your own path in the forest sector.
Good morning, everybody. It's really encouraging to see so many youth, young professionals, and supporters at this Congress. I'm a registered professional forester, and I've been working in the sector for about 15 years. So that puts me about to age out of the young professionals category. So I'm here today to share a little bit about my career path and the lessons I've learned so far. So although I grew up in a northern Canadian town surrounded by trees, I had no idea what forestry was. I thought that I wanted to be a wildlife biologist, saving forests and trees, and actually gave my dad a really hard time about cutting wood to heat our cabin, which was made out of wood. So I really didn't get the connection when I was growing up. It was by luck and circumstance that a wise professor asked me, "Have you ever considered a career in forestry?" That professor gave me a job for the summer collecting data for someone's PhD study on bird habitat. I was so green that I showed up for our first trip out into the woods with Velcro sneakers on. So Francis took me shopping for my first pair of work boots and got me hooked on the idea of working in the forest sector. So off I went to university to study forestry. I will say that even at that time, I still had this idea in my mind that I wanted to save forests. I didn't know quite what that meant yet, but as I started looking for relevant summer employment, I had a really hard time. I couldn't find a job. I was limiting myself with location and what I thought I wanted to do. So, after spending a summer disappointed and without forestry work, I changed my strategy. For the next summer, I applied to every single job on the job board, did many interviews, and got one offer. Doing hard labor, driving a giant truck in a city in a different country. It was hard, I was scared, but I needed something on my resume, and I needed to prove it to myself that I was cut out for this. So after surviving that, I had something on my resume, and more opportunities came forward. Still doing hard work, often in remote locations, but the lessons I learned were invaluable. And it also made me realize that I needed to look outside the box that I'd created for myself of what I thought I wanted to do in the forest sector. So the lesson I learned was that we should apply ourselves broadly and not limit ourselves, because once you get your foot in a door, more doors open. So, once I finished school, off I went to join the workforce fully. I realized pretty quickly when I started working that I felt grossly unqualified. Luckily, the people that I was working with believed in myself far more than I did, and they were really happy to help me learn the real-life skills I needed. You have to do everything for the first time once. Every job I took was a giant leap for me. I started, my first full-time job was writing a giant strategic forest management plan for about 250,000 hectares in Canada. That was scary, but I pulled it off and moved on to another complete switch, more field-based work with hands-on forest management. And that's where I still find myself and where I felt that it clicked for me of this is why I'm here. So I've changed from being someone who feels like I have to save forests by not cutting trees to being personally responsible for their sustainable management. And that fills me up every day. I have, however, still taken some different kinds of job opportunities that forced me to face my fear of public speaking and being in front of a camera. So with every one of these challenges that I've accepted, it's forced me to grow. And I think we all need to do that. Make room to grow. We're all busy, but we should try to do something that scares us often. I've been extremely lucky throughout my career to have many amazing mentors. The people on this screen have helped me get to where I am today, and I still thank them every time I see them. So if you're in need of a mentor, here's a hint. Just ask someone. Chances are they won't say no, especially if you've proven yourself to be someone who's invested in your career and realize that you have a lot to learn from other people. And if you're in a position to be a mentor, that's the greatest gift you can give. Share your experience, take a chance on the underdog, and help someone gain their skills and confidence. That means you can be partially responsible for someone else's success. There are some things that can't be learned from a book, so definitely share your experience. The next lesson I learned was about the power of community. In 2015, my friend Jessica Kaknavicius and I started what we called at the time a rebuttal to the Old Boys Club. We became friends because we were often among the only women at forestry events. So we set out to start an informal network for women who work in, with, and for the woods. We launched a website, blog, gave presentations, wrote articles, had events, all with the goal of encouraging women to pursue a career in the forest sector and helping women in wood succeed in their careers. We're now joined by more than 2,500 women all across the world. So why was Women in Wood necessary? Well, it turns out that as of 2015, only 17% of Canada's forest sector is made up of women. It turns out that if you can see it, you can be it. It's important to show a diversity of people doing a variety of jobs. Otherwise, it's hard to see yourself in that position. When we ask women in the group what they like about it, they say that they value the relationships they've built. They feel empowered by seeing women doing jobs that they haven't before seen women doing. And also, they're gaining confidence through the sharing of information, advice, and career opportunities. So we hope that the next time that that percentage is measured, there will be a much higher representation of women in the sector, because there are increasing numbers of conversations about equity in the workforce. Something that's served me well is saying yes to opportunity. I call this my yes map. So 4 years ago, I hadn't left North America, basically. You never know what's going to come your way. So I would encourage you to say yes to opportunity. And that might be small, like, would you give a presentation to my grade 2 class about forestry? You're busy, I get that. But you have to make time to expand your skill set. For example, saying yes to being a very small part in a local film project about forestry led me to an international opportunity that's enabled me to visit many countries. Obviously, I was scared to do that, but it forced me to grow, and it also forced me to look outside my sector and how my skills are applicable elsewhere too. So you really never know what lies ahead. So I encourage everyone in this room to consider if there's something on this to-do list that you can implement yourself. Can you ask a young person if they've considered a career in forestry? Without that person, I would not be here today. So you can do that for someone else. Can you look outside the box that you've created for yourself of what you expect in your career? Can you accept challenges at every stage and also elevate people within your office and network to have the opportunity to be challenged? Can you get a mentor or be a mentor? Can you find your community, or if it doesn't exist, build one? And always try to say yes to opportunity. Thank you.
Wow, Lacey, thank you so much. There was so much in your presentation that resonated with myself as well, but one of the things I really loved was, if you can see it, you can be it. And that is exactly why we have this event today, to put young professionals on the stage so younger generations can see what they are capable of doing and what's possible in the forest sector. So now I'd like to ask, our next keynote speaker is Alfred Duval. He is a forester for Port Blakely and a recipient of the inaugural Prince of Wales Award for Sustainable Forestry. He will share his experience of founding a young professional network, Future Foresters, in New Zealand.
Annyeong, kia ora, and good morning. As Elaine mentioned, my name is Alfred Duval. I'm a forester from New Zealand, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today to give you a brief glimpse into the story behind a Young Foresters Network we have created in New Zealand. And hopefully in doing so, I can help to showcase the importance of these networks to our young forestry professionals. But firstly, just a little bit about myself. For the past 5 years, I've been working as a half operational, half technical forester for a 150-year-old family-owned American company called Port Blakely. And part of what I want to get across to you today is how much I love the work that I do and how passionate I am about forestry. Like many of you in this room today, and hopefully joining online, I see forests as a key part of developing a sustainable future. Not only that, but the diverse, rewarding and different careers that are available within such a sustainable sector make me extremely passionate about what I do. In just my short time of being a forester and being in the sector, I've had opportunities that I never would have dreamed prior to entering. For example, even getting the chance to speak here today, and even the chance to sit down, have a cup of tea with Prince Charles in the rainforest. That being said, given my passion for forestry, it doesn't mean that I'm blind to the challenges that we face. These challenges were especially important to me as a young professional entering the sector because they challenged what I was viewing and how I was trying to create my place. So I've got 4 key challenges and I'll go through these with you now. First of all, there was essentially a lack of network. There was no chance for young foresters entering into the workplace to get together, to feel connected and supported by their peers. I kept hearing about the importance of networks, especially early in your career, but then not aware of any avenues to facilitate that. Secondly, and this isn't unique to New Zealand, as I've heard at this conference and I've actually heard many times before, forestry in New Zealand has a general negative public perception. This perception, however, is misaligned with the experiences from myself and from those who I know who have a career in forestry. Even if I look back and reflect on my own experience prior to starting out, I had a tainted view of what I thought forestry was until I began studying. Thirdly, there seemed to be a lack of an awareness of these forestry career opportunities to younger people. Again, I reflect on my own experience and to a lot of my friends as well. We happened to chance upon a career in forestry, and actually Lacey mentioned it as well. Something doesn't sit quite right with me with the fact on how much I enjoy what I do, and yet it was down to chance. I'm grateful for that opportunity, but I think that we have a role to promote those forestry careers and not keep them to ourselves because of how important they have been to us. And lastly, there was a lack of opportunity for young professionals to have their voices heard and to be given opportunities to speak and collaborate and sit on working groups. Therefore, alongside 3 of my very good forestry colleagues in New Zealand, we decided to do something about it. We kept hearing about these issues, but we wanted to be proactive and offer some part of a solution to those challenges. So we formed our group, Future Foresters. It was a young professionals network for foresters within New Zealand to get together, feel supported, and to feel part of a wider community. You might be able to tell that these key objectives are essentially countering those 4 challenges that I outlined earlier. It was as if it was planned. Although all 4 of these key objectives are important in their own right, the foundational goal of what we were trying to achieve was to create a community. It was to foster that network. It is my firm belief that without fostering the network, our ability to counter and to achieve those other 3 objectives would be severely limited. And so how did we do it? To put it very simply, there were 2 avenues, online and in person. Our online approach largely centred around our website and our Facebook and Instagram. Through those channels we could promote events and we could promote what I like to term forestry positive stories. We were always seeing forestry in the media in a negative light. We didn't want to directly counter that. We just wanted to put out a different viewpoint, our own forestry positive content. As part of that, we have created 10 social media length videos. They're about 30 seconds to a minute long, and they are on topics such as career opportunities or career profiles and showcasing the different parts of the forestry supply chain, just to try to increase the information that's out there about forestry. With regards to in-person, we like to run professional development events and social events. Whenever we do run a professional event, we always like to have some form of social element, taking it back to that core foundational goal of trying to foster community, to build our networks and to feel more supported in the industry. I guess the final physical approach that we have had a lot of success with our Future Forester branded shirts. They seem to be very popular with our members, and they quite often feel a sense of pride and connection to be able to wear them and to see their peers wearing them as part of their lives. It's quite interesting actually to look back and think it has only been 3 years and to assess how we are going against those objectives. What really sort of makes me feel proud is the fact that prior to 3 years ago, we didn't have any of the following that I'm about to list. So our member numbers aren't as humongous as Lacey's. However, we've got an active membership of about 200 young foresters throughout New Zealand. Through promotion, we've been able to put forestry positive content, those 10 videos I mentioned previously, who've had over 600,000 views through our social media channels. Through events, we've been able to attend careers expos that are targeted towards younger people in high school and provide a more relatable face for industry promotion and to share our personal stories. And we've also been able to upskill our members through professional development training, focusing generally on the less forestry-specific training and more on the soft skills such as leadership, public speaking, and things like that. We've been able to secure funding for our t-shirts, for our training, and for our events. And now I'm proud to say that we have representation on over half a dozen industry committees and government industry working groups that offer a future forester's perspective, and it has allowed our members to have the opportunity to have their voices heard. The final point I would like to make, and it's a slightly less tangible point, but no less important, is the fact that I feel like there is an increase in the sense of pride to be a young forester in New Zealand. We're not quite there yet, but I feel like the tide is changing. Our foresters are feeling more connected to each other, they feel more supported, and they're better given opportunities to showcase their skills and hopefully be better prepared as they go on and face challenges in their careers. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred. Now, I know the question that is on all of our minds is, how does Prince Charles take his tea? No, we'll follow up more on your story and future foresters during our panel. So now we'll have a series of short personal accounts from 3 inspiring young women working in the forest sector from different regions. First, we'll have Amina Aden Maalam, the only female forestry research scientist in northeastern Kenya, working for the Kenya Forestry Research Institute on rural development and agroforestry. She will be joining us online in Kenya. We're really appreciative that she's awake at this time of day to join us. She will be followed by Annalie Bustos, an Argentinian biologist working in forest restoration on the Monte Alegre Natural Reserve in Cordoba. She is also co-chair of the World Economic Forum's Generation Restoration Youth Hub. And if you have not seen her WFC World Forest Voices Changemakers video, then you should definitely check that out. Lastly, we will hear from Maria Paula Saragumba, a Filipino forester who is the program lead for nature-based solutions at Veritree. She's also the vice president of the International Society of Tropical Foresters. So Amina, if you'd like to join us online.
Yeah, thank you, Elaine. Project now so that I can present. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction, Elaine. Like she said, I'm a research scientist, and my background is agroforestry and sustainable rural development, and a researcher with local and international research experiences. And my story is quite different from the other presenters or panelists. And what really inspired me to take part in the forestry sector is, first of all, forestry. I didn't choose forestry. Forestry chose me. Just like any other ordinary young high school graduate, I was very passionate in doing medical courses, but unfortunately, it was impossible for me. So through the government-sponsored program, I was able to study agroforestry and rural development. And right now I have 7 years of professional experience in the field. And another reason that inspired me is being an ambassador of change and also a reference point for the female foresters in the region, since I didn't have any role model from my region and specifically from my community. And also another thing is the uniqueness. Next slide, sorry. The uniqueness of the region that I came from. I come from the drylands, which has the highest population and the land percentage in Kenya. And it's also dominated by nomadic pastoralists who experience forestry challenges. And I also feel like the land has a lot of opportunity, and therefore we needed to developing forestry innovations and technologies to be able to sustain the livelihoods there. And at a young age, I didn't have, when I was early in my careers, I didn't have any networking opportunities. So when I went for my master's degree, my lecturer, Dr. Fergus Sinclair, teachings and his extensive work in the rural areas of the global north and of the global north and the global south has really inspired me. And also another person who has really inspired me is the PK Nair's also research work. And the fellowships and the mentorship opportunities have also been very big contributors to my field and also the kind of work that I'm doing. A very good example is the ICRAF C4 Fellowship under the West Africa Forest Farm project in Ghana and Burkina Faso, where I worked with the Fulani pastoralists who also have similar nomadic pastoral lifestyle and like us, and who also have the same religion as us. And I looked at what are the drivers of changes in the fodder resource availability, accessibility, and utilization. And also another fellowship was working on agroecology and sustainable rural development, looking at the global north, global south nexus. And this was supported by BMZ, and we did it together with the Center for Rural Development at Humboldt University in Germany. And lastly, another mentorship program was the Green Mentorship Program, which we're doing a virtual 6 months program. And the team is already there at Korea. And I'm really glad to have met all of them. And my mentor is Elaine. Thank you, Elaine. You've been a very good inspiration. And also people whom I really credit their mentorship, who have mentored me, Dr. Jesse Owino, who's a very good climate expert in KEFRI, and also Ms. Juliet Achieng, who is a researcher with European Forest Institute, and also Dr. Ahmed Mohammed, who is a senior dryland researcher from the region. Next slide. Since I do research, I conduct research. How do I do it? We do conduct research in forestry and allied natural resources. And as you can see in the first picture where I'm seated with the community, we're trying to collect data and they are trying to give me whatever information that they have. And also in the second lower picture is that we do disseminate those findings in various platforms. And that is me trying to teach agroforestry in the drylands. And also on the governance front, we do work with various stakeholders, state and non-state partners, community members who are pastoralists, farmers, agro-pastoralists, and we do develop customized policies for the region. And a very good example is the disaster risk management policy. Due to these droughts, floods, livestock diseases, continuous locust invasion, and another one is the climate change policy and fund. You can see that the policy is there. And also down there, I do mentorship, whereby there's a young person down there who has been one of the guys the young youth I have mentored, and he has participated in an innovation lab where we was trying to find local forestry solutions for local problems. And he has worked on how to generate goods from an invasive plant species that we have in Kenya. Next slide. And on the front of knowledge management, I do a lot of work in restoration activities, and I try to integrate science and indigenous technology and technical knowledge for the sustainable forest management. On the upper photo, the photos of them, the first 3 photos are showing how we do that and how we also work with them. And also looking at the region and how climate change is affecting them. The plants are also disappearing. The very important plants are disappearing. So I've developed an extension guidebook that is looking at priority high value plants that can be used for restoring degraded landscapes so that we can preempt on the UN Decade Declaration on Ecosystem Restoration and also for the achieving the very many sustainable development goals. And Kenya is committed to having 10% tree cover on all lands, and we are exhausting these on all avenues when we are using site-matched species for the assets, and we use them during the national and the seasonal planting programs. And we have also designed drought and flood suitable species. And for the drought, we have the Melia. An example is for the drought, we have the commercial Melia volcanic species and the bamboo along the degraded riverbanks. And the uniqueness of the region I come from also, it hosts the biggest refugee camp in Kenya, in Africa. So we have the Dadaab refugee camp, and we're trying to integrate the host communities and the refugees, and we have developed an integrated socio-economic development program whereby I've been part of the forestry, agriculture, and the fisheries section. And what takeaway message am I sending here? It's good to be being passionate about what we do, and we can encourage or inspire others to start appreciating you and what you do, and therefore they can start doing this. And this is how we show we enjoy what we do, so that they can also be very open and confident in what they're doing and motivate others and have many more young foresters in the sector. Thank you, Elaine.
And thank you, Amina.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anali. I'm from Argentina. I'm a biologist, and I have also a master in conservation, and I'm currently a PhD candidate at the University of Buenos Aires. As you can see, I have a background on the academic field, but some years ago, I made a challenging choice, or maybe, as Amina said, forests chose me. So I consider that I have been very lucky at the beginning of my career, since Argentina is a country where the focus is on agriculture, so the opportunities in the forestry sector are extremely low. In 2016, after graduating as a biologist, a family of farmers from my close circle contacted me to go to their property to survey a 100-hectare forest. After some evaluations, the family decided to embark on the ecological restoration of this area. And at today, 5 years later, it is a nature reserve named Monte Alegre Reserva Natural Monte Alegre, or Monte Alegre Nature Reserve, in which I'm the coordinator. I consider myself very lucky because I had the chance to start my career from scratch and grow together with this project that today is engaging the local communities. These types of opportunities are not common in my country, but at the same time, I faced numerous challenges since there is no mentoring or support for young people who develop forestry projects. So it has been amazing at the same time, super challenging. In Argentina, the professional exclusion of young people in the forestry sector begins with university training, where in most of the cases, academic programs are divided between biology and agronomic science. There are almost no academic programs for the specific training of professionals in forestry matters. This means that the study options are very limited, and the knowledge acquired is directed specifically to the scientific research, in the case of biology, or the management and direction of agricultural practices in agronomic science. When young people leave university and try to enter the forestry sector, they find that they have numerous knowledge gaps, mainly related to the economic and social aspects of working with forests. This subqualification, in many cases, pushes them to choose other jobs in other areas. In the case of forest restoration, perhaps because it is a new science and a new practice, there are still very few real jobs opportunities for new professionals in my country. In many cases, it is expected that young people who are just starting out work as volunteers. This could be a way to obtain experience and training, but it is impossible to maintain it over time without another means of livelihood. So it is almost utopian to be able to dedicate 100% the time to jobs in the forestry sector. Today, there are numerous plans and programs, international programs, such as the United Nations Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. In this context, it will be expected that in the near future, various or some state and government plans and programs help improve this situation for us, creating projects and new opportunities for learning, training, and real jobs for the next generations of young professionals. I feel hopeful, and I really hope to contribute with my work so many other young people, and mainly young women, have the same educational and professional opportunities that I have. Thank you very much.
Annyeonghaseyo, I'm Paula Sarigumba, and today I'm going to tell you my story, how I got into forestry, what was my career in the past 10 years look like, and my top 3 tips for young bucks and dinosaurs. I'm sorry, I have to exaggerate that, for us to better engage young forestry professionals in the sector. And also, I'm going to illustrate that with, since we are in Seoul, I'm going to illustrate that with some Korean pop culture. To also, you will know all the quirky things around us. Earlier, I showed you the Cacao Friends, so I later hope you could spot it in COEX. So my story, I look bored in that photo, but usually, yeah, we're bored. We look bored in conferences like this, but I hope you're not looking bored right now. I got into forestry because I didn't get into the program that I want. I wanted to be in biology, but I'm bad at math. And I was like desperate to get into university. I don't want to fail my parents. And forestry is an underappreciated program. And they're desperate for students. So I was like, take me in, right? It's the story for, I have some colleagues here from UP Los Baños, and they know this story. It's very underappreciated. And they're like desperate for students. So I'm just like, please take me. And I have no idea what forestry was. And then I got in. I failed my taxonomy. I failed a lot of subjects, to be honest, because I am not good at numbers. I'm not good at memorizing, but I like talking to people. I like talking to local communities, and that's how I started my career. I was working with research projects in the Philippines in watershed monitoring, long-term ecological monitoring, and talking to local farmers, local communities on their interests, on their vision on the landscape. And I enjoyed that job. You know, having that on-the-ground experience really helped me to land into my international forestry development career. And I toured around in different organizations. I was an intern at International Union of Forest Research Organizations in Vienna. I was a lowly consultant at Center for International Forestry Research. I was at Food and Agriculture Organization in Asia Pacific as again, lowly consultant. And now I am the program lead for nature-based solutions at Veritree. So from one contract to another, from one short-term gig to another, that has been the picture of my career. But I learned a lot, you know, after touring these organizations, after learning their acronyms, I was able to navigate the forestry sector. And still, I'm lost at some point, but I'm surrounded now with mentors that I really appreciate, with friends that I value most. You know, sometimes when you're in this Congress, when you're first, especially for young students, I have these moments like, why did I just say that? You know, like you're always unsure of how you navigate these spaces. But when you're surrounded with friends, you're more comfortable. You validate some of your feelings, some of how you express things. So that has helped me in going through around, in different spaces. And so, what is my first pointer for young professionals? That it's okay to feel lost. That in Korea they have this neighbor map, and it's like their Google map, and it's better. So if you're lost and if there's something wrong with your Google map, maybe it's best to download that. I'm not paid, by the way, by Naver, and so it's okay to feel lost. But you gotta find your neighbor map, and these neighbor maps are your mentors, are your friends, are your forestry students. And so I hope that from COEX, I hope that we lead to better youth engagement by providing more mentoring opportunities, by providing networking opportunities for young professionals, for youth, for students. And it should not end in COEX. Try to build that in your country. Try to build that in your organization. My top 2. There's strength in numbers. So BTS, if you know BTS, this is the most popular K-pop group. I don't know how much percentage they give to the GDP of Korea, but I know that K-pop groups are huge. And K-pop, it's not BTS, for example. BTS, it's not BTS. They won't be successful if they're not together. It's not BTS if it's just Jin, the leader. It won't make that impact. So believe in the power in numbers. So form groups, form your community, form members of young professionals. And Lane will tell you more later, but we're forming a group that would consolidate young professionals. And also, form alliances, form an ally with youth, form alliance with students. We're all in this together. So there's power in collectives. So strength in numbers, like BTS. And last but not least, it's not us versus them. Elaine mentioned this to us last week, and I was like, that's a powerful message, like Squid Game. If everyone is familiar, most of you must know this. K-drama is also very huge in Korea. It's also one of their biggest exports. Maybe the Koreans here would tell us more later in the networking, but it's not us versus them. So, we have to be in this together. Young Bucks, it's not Young Bucks versus dinosaurs. The Young Bucks should work together with the dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs, should enable these spaces for Young Bucks. So if they ask you, for the bosses here, if they ask you they want to be in a conference, support them, give them the registration fee, right? And it's that way, you have to expose the young professionals for them to feel lost and for them to feel, to have that first-hand experience, for them to reflect and weave together. And that's it. 감사합니다.
Thanks for raising the energy in the room, Paula. Almost feel like we could just go home now and we can end it there. It's hard to follow up to that. Hopefully we can keep the panel as energetic. It's amazing. We've got, and I'll include myself in this, 5 young professionals on this stage. We all ended up in the sector coincidentally by accident. And I think that's really powerful. I also want to say that on this stage, we have 47 years of collective experience in the forest sector. And I think that is important. We often put older professionals that we say have lots of experience on the stage to represent the sector. We have a lot of experience here too. Between the 5 of us, we have on average 10 years of experience in the sector, and with that, a lot of expertise. So with that, I'd like to ask everyone on our panel, including Amina online, what has been the greatest challenge for you in establishing or progressing your career, and how did you overcome this? And maybe we'll go in reverse order and start with Paula, who can keep the energy going.
Sorry, I didn't know it's on. I just following what I said earlier, I felt lost most of the time. And, for example, acronyms. There's so many acronyms in forestry. IUFRO, FAO, UNFF, and then even concepts like PES, NBS, I'm so lost. And then ABCD, EFG, HIJK, LMNOP. It's always new, it's always something different. So, but I realized that if you're true to what you believe in, if you're true to your passion, then you won't get lost. And then just surround yourself with those who have the same, who are like-minded people, like people beside me right now. And that's a barrier for me, to have that, to navigate that kind of environment. Thank you.
Annalie, same question.
For me?
Yeah.
Well, I completely agree with Paula. I'm at the beginning of my career, I felt absolutely lost. But as a professor said, one for me, let's do baby steps. So small steps, again, once, and we can achieve great goals. But we have to be patient. We have to be patient with our learning processes and with the process of the team also, if we are working into a team or with other people. I think that was my main challenge, to be patient with the processes of the human issues, but also thinking about nature. Nature, if we are working with forests or to restore in ecosystem restoration, the times of nature are not the same of our times. So patience is for me a key, and that was for sure my main learning in this path. Yeah.
And we'll go to Amina online. Same question. What was the greatest challenge for you in establishing or progressing your career, and how did you overcome this?
I actually have two great challenges. One of them was reference point. I lacked somebody who could give me in my early careers, like who would guide me. I didn't have a mentor, but I don't consider it a challenge anymore because I've turned it into an opportunity. And I can now say that I can proudly say that I can now guide more young people. And also, networking opportunities were limited. We didn't have access to such opportunities. And even if they came, the senior ones were picked. And I've overcome them because now I tend to directly apply for programs that are relevant to my career, like whatever dreams that I want to pursue. And it has made me interact with you guys now. Thank you.
Thank you. Alfred?
Yes, so I mean, it's easy to say that there weren't opportunities, but sometimes I like to reflect and think, actually, sometimes my biggest enemy is myself, and it's almost, especially early in your career, and it kind of reflects what the other panelists have said, you get this imposter syndrome, and there's so much in you that's saying, well, you're not qualified to be on this panel, you're not qualified to do that, what do you know? And it's almost trying to encourage the young people and encourage yourself to take those risks, which also reflects on what Lacey mentioned in her talk. So I think the biggest barrier sometimes can be ourselves, but being put in a situation where you're allowed to feel encouraged and to feel able to take those risks and opportunities, that's the best way to overcome them.
Thank you. And Lacey?
Yeah, for me too, it was breaking in, getting that first job. I definitely didn't fit the mold. I didn't look like most of my classmates. And I didn't really realize that might have been a limitation at the beginning. But I think now in hindsight, once I did start getting opportunities and getting these champions behind me, it's been a benefit to not fit the mold. So definitely embrace what you bring to the table that's different.
So if there are any questions from the audience, either online or in person, if you're online, please put it in the chat or the Q&A. But if you have a question in the audience, please raise your hand. A mic will be brought to you. And if you could remember to introduce yourself, name, where you're from, organization, and if you have a question directed to a specific panelist, please say who that's to. We have a gentleman in the front.
Okay, thank you for that. It's not so much a question as just a comment from what I've heard, and I felt standing here as a dinosaur, I should give a perspective to add to those that have gone before me. And look, I just wanted to say I'm a Kiwi as well. Well done, Alfred. That was a bloody good presentation. I'm proud of your son. We'll have a beer when you get home. But look, I've heard a lot here about the confidence and the breaking in, and all I would say from the other side is we're all imposters. We all think the same. So, have the confidence. And when I'm looking at the participation of young foresters, I'm not looking at you and thinking, you're great people, I'd love to have you around. It's actually coming from a perspective that you've got something we need. And if we're talking about tomorrow's issues, you are going to inherit that world and you are going to be the decision makers. So if we don't have your voice, then our decision making is the poorer for it. So come from that angle, you've got something. It's not about asking for a place, demand it. We have to have you there. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could have your name, please.
Roads Forest Owners Association, New Zealand.
David, thank you. Well said. And I hope other people can take on the attitude and perspective you have towards young people, because that's not necessarily a prevalent one. And we have a question at the back in the middle. Does anyone in the panel want to respond to that by any chance while we wait for the next person to ask?
I was just going to say, sometimes another one of the tips for starting out is to stay weird. You might be sitting in a room where you're the only person under 50, which is how I spent most of my career. And my ideas are always out of left field, but bring them. They're not all good ones, but some of them definitely add a different perspective that would not otherwise come forward.
Thanks. Yeah, please introduce yourself before you ask your question or comment.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Fola Babalola. I'm from Nigeria. I'm an academic. I'm a researcher, an associate professor of forest socioeconomics at the University of Ilorin in Nigeria. I know from what we are discussing this morning, I came into forestry without knowing forestry. And recently we published a book in Africa under IFSA UFRO, Building a Successful Career in Forestry in Africa. And one thing we discovered from all the people we interviewed, more than 90% did not choose forestry. But they all have career in forestry. They have job in forestry. I think from what normally confronts anybody in forestry, most students is, what is the future? What lies ahead of me? Where can I work? Students normally ask that. And I have a suggestion for you today. Don't mind the future now. Don't mind the job. Just make sure you get focused. You build a career. You have a record. Let the future, along the line, the opportunities will come your way. And everything will work for you. From all the testimonies we heard this morning, it's about you getting focused. So as a student, I will always advise you that just mind your business. Just mind your business. The third time, mind your business. Keep focused. I bet you the opportunity will come your way. I've mentored more than 200 students with scholarships, with fellowship, with sponsorship all over the world. But what I'm telling you this morning is just mind your business. Keep focused and build network of like minds. Let people encourage you. Don't just get distracted with what forestry have for you in the future or what doesn't have for you. And I bet you there's a lot of opportunity on your way. Thank you.
We have a question in the middle, young lady in the front. Comments are welcome too, obviously.
Good morning. So my name is Lily. I'm from Kenya, and I'm an environmental engineering student in Hungary. So from the panelists, I've discovered that here in Korea, there are jobs, but they are not students. But like back in Kenya, there are so many students with like who have graduated, but there are no jobs. So my question is, how do we scale up jobs in the forestry sector, especially in the Africa region? Because I get so many questions, like when I get opportunities like this, a lot of my inbox is full of, I also do this, I'm also having these small projects, but I don't have funding. So yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we will ask Amina to answer that question, if to the best of your ability, Amina.
Can you repeat the question?
The question was, how do we scale up job opportunities for students, so early career professionals in Africa? Was that correct?
Thank you for the question, Lily. I've been following you and what you do. Thank you for your contribution in the sector. At the moment, employment is very competitive. And if you have, despite having the forestry technical expert, if you have an extra additional skill, it would be an added bonus and makes you conspicuous amongst most applicants. But I would really advise starting up as internships, and then progressing towards taking up any opportunity that comes in, whether you are absorbed within that institution or you are recommended to go and you're given recommendations to go and join another job. That will be an added bonus. And also, please don't limit yourself. If you don't get a job, don't limit yourself to thinking that, oh, I'm not worthy of it. Several of my classmates whom we have finished undergraduate together didn't get a job, and today they're really happy because we've been advising them to continue pursuing their education and taking up internships, and also whether they're paid or unpaid, they should take up so that you don't lose focus on interest in the area, and you can also develop your career in any way. And we'll also share any opportunities that come globally and also locally. Thank you.
Thanks, Amina. And if I can add, I didn't get to share my story, but my first job out of university was actually working in one of the largest banks in the world. I took that job and volunteered for environmental organizations for probably the first 3 years. So I had employment, had a salary, but I was gaining practical experience in the field I wanted. Sometimes you just have to be creative about forging your path. And as Lacey said earlier, and other people also mentioned, don't limit yourself. Be creative about how you gain your experience. Now I have one final question for the panel. It's a bit of a two-parter. If you could give one piece of advice to youth aspiring to the sector, what would it be? And when it comes to empowering youth and young professionals, what's one piece of advice you'd give to a more senior professional, and I'm hesitant to use the word dinosaur, what would it be? We'll start with Lacey.
Okay, for youth, I would say, just do it. Get in there. Do what you have to do to break in. Like, that is the hardest part, definitely. So looking outside of what you think you wanted to do and not being closed to the grunt work. I did about 4 years of that before I got a full-time job. So contracts and like labor, dirty bush work, which is, it's fun. And that's what what made me more committed to the sector and realizing how good the intentions were of managing forests. And to the dinosaurs in the room, I feel like I'm about to join you pretty soon, but pay it forward. Remember the kindness that you were shown as you were starting out in your career, and help somebody else that's coming. And honestly, Chad, who was in my wall of fame, If he hadn't given me my first job in Ontario, and it was definitely taking a chance on the underdog, and they told me after they didn't think I would last 2 weeks, but we're sure glad I came. If he hadn't given me that job and just taken a chance, I wouldn't be here. So do that for someone else.
Alfred? Or Annalie, go ahead. Yeah, we can go down the line.
I was thinking when I started to work in this project, which is today is a nature reserve, many people and maybe older people than me, because this was a very damaged forest. So they asked me, "Girl, what are you doing? Like, what is your point? What is your objective? You cannot do that. This is impossible." And at that moment, I just closed my eyes and I said, "Okay, I can do this. And if I can't, I need to try at least." So my advice is sometimes we really need to close our eyes and to don't hear the negative comments and just keep going. And amazing things happen when we really trust in ourselves and in our capabilities and in our tools. So as I created a nature reserve that today is recognized by the provincial state and has engagement 70 volunteers and has a nursery. So the message is, you can, if I can, you can also. So let's do it.
And for the senior professionals, and for the seniors, what's one advice you would give to the older generation of professionals?
Okay. I don't know. I think I have, my experience is short in this field, but I think that we, as a starting generation, we could think about the mentoring, and as we didn't have the enough mentoring in our careers, we could think about to be good mentors in the future and to fill that gap that we didn't have in the past. So yeah, that's my point.
Thanks. Alfred, same two questions.
Okay, my answer is very simple, and it's basically take opportunity for the young people. Well, actually, this answer applies to both young and old. It's to take opportunity, to take every chance that you ever get given, and then to give opportunity. If you ever have the chance to give that to someone else, then it's also a really nice feeling helping out someone else and extending the hand and giving them the platform as well. So,
thanks. Paula?
For young bucks, know yourself. Know what you're good at. Know what what's your skill, what's your strength, what's your weaknesses, and what you believe in. I think that's very important. Know yourself, and that would help you in your career. For the dinosaurs, you've been there, so you must know the feeling. So, like Lacey said, extend the hand, pay it forward. And also think that there are material realities that are needed if you really want to capacitate young professionals. So provide support, invest in young professionals. Put a line item in your budget on conference budget or for Friday get together of young professionals, something like that, something tangible.
Thank you. And Amina, two quick pieces of advice, one for youth and one for more senior professionals empowering youth and young professionals.
Thank you. For the young bucks, forestry is a broad sector, and for you to be able to have a good future, find a niche for yourself by making use of the opportunities in advancing your technical and soft skills, and you can also create jobs for the other young, not just for yourself alone, but also for the other young foresters, and then you can also inspire them. And for the dinosaurs, take a chance on the young people as your predecessors have done, and be more accommodating of the young people. Give them the opportunity to be team players and assign them roles so that they feel like they're part of something. And please, practical experience would really encourage to have more passionate young foresters. Thank you.
And thank you to our wonderful panelists. I have to admit, it's an honor and privilege to have you as peers, and I'm really excited to see how our careers grow over time. But now I have the pleasure of launching a new global network for forestry young professionals, or 4YP. If I could have the presentation, please. So in addition to being an agroforestry officer at FAO, I also happen to be a chair for a new global network for forestry young professionals, 4YP. We've already heard a number of stories on what young professionals, how they feel about the forestry sector. Generally, we're seeing youth are less interested in the traditional forestry jobs. They would like to see more green jobs. We see an aging workforce, or at least visibly, that's what it looks like to us. There's low recruitment. Job emphasis is on hard technical skills, but in reality, education is increasingly focused just on the theory and soft transferable skills. So there's a difference in expectation in terms of what youth are hoping to get when they enter the sector and what the sector is hoping youth bring. There's also job insecurity. Most jobs now for younger people are contracts. They're not permanent positions. They have relatively low wages, especially in the economy where there's inflation. Costs of living are proportionally higher than they were in the past. And there are usually limited benefits. Pensions, for a lot of us, don't exist. There's also low visibility for a lot of young professionals. As I said, this is one of the first World Forestry Congresses, and this is the 15th where we're actually seeing young professionals sitting at the table presenting their stories and expertise. This also means, though, that there are limited opportunities to network. Now, we did a survey last year, and around 700 young professionals from 79 countries responded on what their challenges were in terms of not only getting into the sector, but also advancing through the sector. They mentioned a number of challenges quite consistently in terms of career development, discrimination, and lack of networking opportunities. Landing the first job, as has been expressed, can be quite hard, and also gaining relevant experience and knowledge. Without these things, advancement is also quite difficult. Amazingly, even in today's day and age, we're seeing a lot of gender discrimination still. And on top of that, age discrimination. There's this sense that if you look young, it translates to you do not have enough experience. But this is a chicken and egg problem. How do you gain experience if you're not given the opportunity to gain experience? We are also facing traditional mindsets. As Lacey mentioned, she often has out-of-the-box thinking, and this is not always welcomed. And then networking, meeting peers in particular, other fellow young professionals to share ideas and also find solutions to addressing problems together. Motivation and support can be difficult, and building credibility, which again comes with experience. And we are also experiencing geographic isolation, which might be an interesting issue to see considering how well connected we are with social media these days. So why is a network for young professionals needed? We have a lot of vertical networking opportunities, meaning opportunities to meet students and senior professionals, but we have limited horizontal networking experiences. There are a number of existing professional associations and networks, but generally, these have a specific geographic focus. They target more senior audiences or students and recent grads. Young professionals fall through the cracks, and not all of the international associations have a true global scope. There's also limited investments in interactive services and opportunities that truly develop and empower their members. At the end of the day, global challenges need global solutions, which means we need global networking. And in the same survey that provided the challenges in the previous slide, 78% of respondents said that they would want to join a young professional network and felt it would fill an important gap. So, I'm introducing the Global Network for Forestry Young Professionals, or 4YP, which is launching today, very excitingly. It's a culmination of 4 years of work for me, and for a number of people in this room and online, at least 2 years of hard work to get going. So, what is 4YP? First and foremost, it's a global community for young professionals and job seekers in the forest sector to network. First and foremost, we aim to increase the visibility of young professionals in the forest sector, diversifying the voices that we often see, and providing an inclusive space to share ideas, learn, and showcase contributions. Our mission is to empower a global, diverse, and inclusive community of young professionals in the sector, and to grow us into experts. Some of us are already there, though. As I said, Lacey is got more than 15 years of experience, so it's also about sharing that expertise and fostering the next generation. So who is a forestry young professional? We define it as young professionals and job seekers under the age of 40, including recent grads and those with less than 15 years of experience. We'd like to be inclusive of different regions, languages, and even financial accessibility. And we're also interested in engaging with secondary audiences, so students and the forest sector more generally, and to as much as possible, as Alfred is already doing, engage with the wider public to provide positive messages about the forestry sector and help people understand what the forestry sector actually does. And our board is representative of the various forestry young professionals. We're a diverse group, not only in terms of where we're from and the organizations we work for and expertise, but also in terms of where we are in our careers, from early to more mature young professionals, for lack of a better expression. So what will set 4YP apart? For us, it's about meaningful connection. We want member-centered services and opportunities to showcase young professional contributions to the sector. Our members are 4YP. And we've already been active at the World Forestry Congress. So we help to facilitate the connection between the World Forestry Congress and the PLTC mentorship program, which created 51 mentorship partnerships. We supported the Empowering Youth and Young Professionals webinar series. We organized a pre-Congress event where young professionals and other youth were able to network before the Congress, create bonds, and also, I guess, create a buddy system to expand the networks available to them throughout the Congress. And then we advised on the development of the Youth Declaration, which will be shared, I believe, tomorrow. For the current and future success of the sector, we need to empower our young professionals. This means investing in their career development, which means increasing visibility, increasing mentorship, and increasing leadership opportunities. And 4YP is young professionals investing in ourselves, first and foremost. But we cannot do this alone, and we invite others to support us in our efforts. So the next time you are planning a conference, a webinar, or event, and would like to inject some dynamism and energy, or to include younger expert voices, please consider reaching out to 4YP or one of its members. Thank you so much. For those online, you can use the QR code to access our website and social media. For those here, please visit 4yp.org and join us in our attempt to build a better network for young professionals in the forest sector. Thank you so much. And with that, we will have a second part to the session. We will take a short 5 to 10 minute break. So stay. If there are questions left unanswered, feel free to come forward and ask our panelists. But if you leave the room, please come back, because the second part is very interesting, where we can hear more about career development opportunities. But before you go, I'd actually love to get a selfie with the audience and the panelists.
Let's do it.
Alfred, you have the longest arm.
Where are we going from?
We'll use you. No, we're gonna go this way.
That's fine.
So all of us need to squeeze in.
Oh my goodness, all right.
Squeeze in.
Squeeze. You guys ready? Very good. Well done, Tim. That was awesome.
Music. Music. Yeah.
Beatbox.
Somebody lost a pair of glasses. It's here.
Oh my God.
seeing people starting to sit back down. Is this on? Mic. Tech. Up and back.
Hello? Oh, there we go. We're going to get going again for the next part of this session. Equally exciting. New panel, so everyone who is speaking as part of this, please come to the stage. I am still going to sit there, Elaine. Okay. Hi, welcome back. So, as we've just heard, there's many paths that lead to the forest sector, and the directions your career might take are unlimited. But what's being done to attract youth to the sector and to help them thrive when they get here? For the purposes of our discussion, young professionals include those early in their careers, just starting out or navigating the first 15 years towards mid-career. Each stage has its own challenges. Getting that first job, developing important skills, gaining the experience you need to move up, finding a mentor who can help you, plus knowing when to take the next step in your career. We're about to hear 3 presentations on programs that are helping establish young professionals in the sector, followed by a panel discussion with the presenters plus youth representatives from IFSA and 4YP. The panel will include questions from you, the audience, so make sure to jot down any burning questions that come up throughout the session. Also, if you're tuning in online, please feel free to submit questions in the chat too. So first up, we have Shireen Chambers, Executive Director for the Institute of Chartered Foresters in the United Kingdom. Shireen will be telling us about different programs in the UK that are helping young professionals. Next, we have Ramon Carrillo, Communications and Outreach Officer at the International Tropical Timber Organization. He'll give an overview of ITTO's fellowship program, which has been running for more than 30 years. Then Maria Carilla, Mentorship and Youth Programs Manager at Project Learning Tree Canada, will tell us about PLT's Green Mentorship Program, which has matched mentors and mentees across the globe for this event. Shireen, you're up.
Thank you, Lacey, and I'd very much like to thank the FAO for facilitating this session and inviting me to speak. If I could have my presentation, please. Oh, it's there. So just to put in context, please, the UK government has very ambitious targets for woodland creation. In July 2019, the UK legislated to meet net zero national greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, and the government sees trees as a means of achieving this by sequestrating carbon. So the UK's government's focus on forestry is greater than it's been for decades. But we've lost much of our historic forests and associated range of habitats, and the UK's 13% tree cover is well below the European average of 37%. The Committee for Climate Change has recommended increasing tree cover from 13 to 18%, improving woodland management and adopting agroforestry to contribute to the UK's net zero target. So the government has a commitment to create 30,000 hectares of woodland per year by 2025, which is double the current rate. And that's great news for the sector, but we have a skills crisis. So the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, in Glasgow, his COP26 mantra was coal, cars, cash and trees, confirming how fundamental trees are to tackling the climate crisis in my government's viewpoint. But projections from recent research indicate the number of skilled people required to meet these targets. It's up 72% increase across the workforce, which is what we need. Unlike in some countries we've heard in the former session where they're saying it's very hard for young people to get jobs. We're struggling to find people to put in jobs. So this increase, it vastly outweighs the current reality and future trajectory of new entrants. Further and higher education providers, they're just unable to meet or give the necessary training under current resourcing models. We're simply not educating or developing enough people to the standards needed to deliver what's required. There's a lack of forestry as a lack of awareness as a green career, and poor accessibility of courses are a major barrier to recruitment. So we have recent degree apprenticeships, as this photograph shows, in forestry in England, and they offered 45 places and received hundreds of applications. So there is hope. Educators are waking up to the climate and nature crises. There's a brand new natural history qualification for 16-year-olds in the UK, where they may start learning a little bit about forestry. So what about young people who are in jobs? Well, the private sector, which is actually a huge manager of forests in the UK, just as great as the state sector, the bigger forest management companies offer graduate programs, and some are very successful. One company, a large company, told me that over half of its employees are under 30 years of age, and it's got the youngest ever board of directors. But I think environmental organisations, the public sector and smaller forestry companies are slow to follow or don't have the capacity, and this is where the Institute needs to take the lead. So I work for the Institute of Chartered Foresters, which is the royal chartered body for foresters in the UK, and we regulate standards of entry to the profession. So that's for those with a degree in forestry or above. We then set the professional exams for the profession. We support our members and provide guidance to professionals in other sectors. We offer educational advice and training to develop careers in the forest industry. We also work to foster public awareness and understanding of forestry. And 23% of our members are under 35, but that's increasing every year. So we do have more young professionals coming in. We encourage them. We get them to take their professional exams, which helps them in their career. We use them as representatives on government committees. The Institute, as a neutral body, is asked a lot to sit on government committees and advise government. We try and use young professionals to take those roles. We also use them as chairs in our national conference every year, as this picture shows. So we also involve them in the governance of the Institute, which helps develop their skills at collaboration and leading, decision-making, and learning from their peers. And I think most of all, gaining confidence that they have a right to be in the room and at that table. We also have young professional conferences, specific ones just for them. They organise it, they plan it and run it with a little help from us. And it's important for them to foster their own network, which will see them through their careers. I studied forestry over 40 years ago. By the way, I'm not a young professional, I'm the official dinosaur here. So, you know, with my own experience, I was one of a class of about 40, mainly men. I speak to these guys every day. They work all over the world, a lot of them in Britain, but all over the world, and I use that network every single day. We also encourage our young professionals to run their own study tours, and we're about to launch a Future Leaders programme where chosen participants will undertake 5 months of leadership training specific to our sector. And this lovely photo is of young professional speakers at our last national conference before the pandemic, which was held in Oxford in England In the middle is the chair of the Forestry Commission at the time in England and Britain, where we had a session at this conference on future leaders and invited young professionals to run that session. They all happened to be women, and they gave really inspiring talks and generated the most positive feedback from delegates, including one from an ex-president of the Institute who said after hearing them that he wished he was starting his career all over again. And obviously it includes Canada's own leading light, Lacey Rose. We also are investing, as I say, in our own young professionals and trying to encourage more to come into the sector. We have a current campaign called Nurture, Grow, Thrive. So I think the UK is doing all right in investing in its young professionals. We simply need more of them. We need to appeal to young people to realise that forestry is a green career. It's not a dirty career. And this campaign that we're running at the moment is hoping to do that. So thank you.
So there was a lot of implementable actions that we can use as examples there. That was really great, Shireen. I especially appreciate that you guys are making efforts to put youth as chairs at conferences and involve in governance and recognizing the importance of building a network and enabling that to happen. All right, so we have Ramon up next. Please come up. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for that warm welcome. I am Ramon Carrillo. I work as a communications and outreach officer at the International Tropical Timber Organization. I am a youngster on my way to be a dinosaur, and I'm going to introduce you to our fellowship program, which has over 30 years of helping developing young professionals. But first I got to that, I would like to introduce a little bit of ITTO and what do we do. We promote sustainable management and conservation of tropical forests, and we promote expansion and diversification of trade in tropical timber from sustainably managed and legally harvested sources. We are the sole intergovernmental organization focused entirely on tropical forest resources, and our membership covers around 80% of the global tropical forests and accounts for 90% of the global trade in tropical forest products. Capacity building is at the core of ITTO. It is recognized in our current strategic action plan, basically by enhancing training, education, and extension through our flagship program, the fellowship program, and through regional and sub-regional workshops and other dissemination events. What are the objectives of the ITTO Fellowship Program? Well, it promotes human resource development, it strengthens professional expertise in tropical forestry and related disciplines. We're talking about sustainable forest management, the use and processing of tropical timber, and the improvement of economic information on international trade in tropical timber. The fellowship program was established in 1989, and since then it has benefited over 1,400 young and mid-career professionals from 49 countries in pursuing their career development. The investment totals around $14.4 million US, and our prominent donors are the governments of Japan, the US, the Netherlands, and Australia. In 30 years, and as you can see, the impacts of the fellowship program is like, well, most of the fellows get training, new skills, they come home immediately, they get the expertise they are looking for from the hosting institutions, they manage to get or land their first or their next job. It has an impact on the environment and on the environmental policy. It contributes to keeping forest values alive, sustainable forest management, and increased knowledge. So in an assessment of the fellowship program, 61% of the fellows reported that they have obtained a relevant job position or job promotion immediately after completing their fellowship activities. And 73% felt thoroughly related or strongly related to whether the job promotion have to do with learning new skills through the fellowship program. And without further ado, I just will go through some testimonials from the fellows. These testimonials have been slightly edited so that they can fit in with this presentation in the benefit of time. So for example, we have Ms. Thais Almeida Lima from Brazil. She did a doctoral field research on mapping selective logging in the Amazon. And in her summary, she says, mapping logging activities through remote sensing techniques, it is the only feasible way of monitoring vast extents of tropical forests. The field work funded by ITTO was done in different areas of the authorized logging area in the Amazon. The field data collected was an important part of, I guess her publication has been already released, on the comparison of two different and freely available sets of satellite image. And her field research was also supported by the local government, and the methodology she developed will be suitable for use by law enforcement institutions in her country and in some other countries in the tropics. If you want to see more of this fellow, you can watch the video on the link on the slide. Dr. Nguyen Tu Kim from Vietnam took a training in wood anatomy and wood identification at the Forest Products Laboratory of the US Department of Agriculture. In his testimonial, he summarized, it is encouraging that ITTO understands the importance of wood identification. Vietnam imports up to 3 million cubic meters of wood per year. And the support he received for his training course was critical in enhancing his and his lab ability on wood identification, despite that it was a short-term course. He mentions that he achieved his goals, such as recognizing the different structural features of 50 species of wood, especially CITES listed, and commercial timbers from Africa and the Americas. He was exposed to practical knowledge on wood identification through microscopic and microscopic methods, perform specimen preparation and observation of wood features using a range of optical microscopic techniques, and improve his skills in wood identifications based on key features and characteristics. And with more trade of tropical timber happening within Vietnam and other countries, there's an ever-increasing demand at his laboratory for wood identification, and improving his knowledge and skills are really useful to achieve his professional goals. Then we have Ms. Dorothy Azarea Cotto. She did a master's degree in tropical forest management at the Technical University of Dresden in Germany. And she summarizes in her testimonial that as foresters in Ghana, they face many problems and constraints to support small-scale farmers, such as very little money, qualified staff and decision-making power at their disposal, unreliable data and information to serve as a basis for meaningful planning. And she says that the ITTO Fellowship Program gave her the financial support to complete the master's degree in tropical forestry in Germany, and that through that she is equipped with information and skill to support tropical forest management in her country, Ghana, and that for her thesis she interviews smallholders and experts on how to optimize governance and landscape restoration. After her return to Ghana, she reports that she has been assigned a new position at her organization to support tropical forest management in Ghana. And with that, I thank you very much all for your kind attention.
Thank you for that, Ramon. 1,400 youth since 1989. That's really impressive, and it's great to see that it's working. It seems like a program that could be implemented in other countries, and hopefully with the same benefits. So next up, we have Maria, and she's going to talk to us about the importance of mentorship.
Hi, friends. It's really wonderful to be here today. My name is Maria Chiarella, and I am the manager of mentorship and youth programs at Project Learning Tree Canada, an initiative of the Sustainable Forestry Initiative. I want to acknowledge that I live in Victoria, BC, on the traditional territory of the Songhees, Esquimalt, and West Sandwich peoples, whose historical relationship with the land continue to this day. I'm really excited to be able to talk about our mentorship program and the successes that we have seen over the past 2 years, including with the World Forestry Congress on our joint cohort. Mentorship is one way that we are investing in future forest and conservation leaders. So PLT Canada is an environmental nonprofit. Since 2018, we've been able to place over 5,000 youth in green jobs. We have been able to achieve gender balance in the placement of youth, as well as supported hundreds of Indigenous youth. In addition to job placements, we also offer a mentorship program for youth and forest and conservation sector professionals. We also support youth to attend networking events and training opportunities, and we offer a wide array of career resources on our website. Got the buttons mixed up. But yeah, so today I want to talk about the following. What are the challenges within the forest and conservation sector? Addressing the challenges through mentorship, and lastly, the benefits and results from mentorship. So historically in Canada, ethnic minorities have been excluded from the forest and conservation sector. This lack of representation perpetuates systemic barriers for people, and this results in a major barrier in recruitment and retention of young talent. Women are also highly underrepresented in the forest sector, particularly in senior levels. In fact, in Canada, as Lacey mentioned earlier today, women only make up 50% of the forest sector. There's also a need for minority professionals who can serve as role models, and this is very much linked to that first point. People who do not see themselves represented in a career will not go after it. We want to make sure that the forest sector is diverse and welcoming of all people. There's also a challenge of shifting negative perceptions of the sector, which is often linked to deforestation, physically demanding work, or low wages. And lastly, 1/3 of the forest sector is set to retire by 2030. We will need to train young people to fill these positions, but this can only happen if we're actively making spaces safe and welcoming. So what is mentorship? Mentorship is a personal and professional relationship. We typically have a mentor who's able to guide a mentee through an experience, so either their career pathway planning, their education, decisions, or transition into work. Through time, relationships build, and mentorship is also built on mutual respect, trust, understanding, and empathy. Mentors help guide the mentee through their career pathway and also bring in new ideas, and can also become great candidates for employment and recruitment opportunities. For companies that use the mentorship approach, they're able to retain longer because youth have support on issues like safe spaces for minorities or someone who helped them with their career pathway. It also exposes youth to new career paths within the sector. We often hear youth say that they didn't even know careers existed within the forest sector. Lastly, it establishes support systems in the workplace. These touch points with a trusted person supports the retention of young professionals. And in turn, we know that mentees are also growing. We've heard from our past surveys that mentees are gaining skills like communication, self-awareness, and goal setting. These soft skills are crucial for the development of young professionals. And so since last year, we've been working with the World Forestry Congress to create a mentorship program for youth around the globe. And the results have been outstanding. We had over 500 people apply to our program, and we had the very difficult choice of narrowing it down to just 51 mentorship pairs. But the results have been really, really great. We have mentees that because of their mentors were able to do great in their interviews and get their jobs. And similarly, through honest and vulnerable conversations, they've been able to gain confidence in their abilities. And so to us, that is success. Seeing not just our mentees thriving, but also seeing the mentors feel excited about the next generation. Before I end today, I just want to highlight a few more of our stats from our last national cohort, just to showcase how impactful mentorship can be. We've heard that 98% of program participants would recommend the program, and 82% felt that they were able to build great relationships with their mentor. We've heard from mentees that many of them either got a job or advanced in their career because of the advice that their mentor has given them. And lastly, that 86% of mentees feel inspired to continue working in the forest and conservation sector. And these are the results that we want to see. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me share a little bit about our mentorship program and encourage all the youth here today to seek mentorship. And for folks that are in hiring or management positions, to consider creating a mentorship program because mentorship matters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. I'm just going to stay over here because we're about to start our panel. But I would say that 5,000 youths in green jobs and this mentorship program that's been running for a few years now in Canada, after participating myself 3 times, I can say that I'm a huge fan, and I think that the Green Mentorship Program has the potential to help so many more people develop mentorship relationships, and there's a lot of benefits of being a mentor as well. So don't forget about that. If they're ever looking for volunteers for mentors, it's definitely a worthwhile experience. So now we are welcoming 2 more important voices to the panel. Magdalena Jovanic, please correct me if I said that wrong, I'm very sorry, as the president of the International Forestry Students Association, and we have Elaine Springet, who's chair of the Global Network for Forestry Young Professionals, rejoining us. So since we haven't heard from you yet during this session, I would like to ask Magdalena if you could take a few minutes to introduce yourself and tell us about IFSA as it relates to helping youth succeed in the forest sector. Welcome.
Thank you, Lacey. So my name is Magdalena Jovanovic. So that was pretty close, and I am a student at the University of Belgrade doing my bachelor studies, and I'm also the president of the International Forestry Students Association. So if you haven't heard of IFSA yet, IFSA is the largest network of forestry students in the world. And something that is really special about us is that this year we're turning 50 years of our International Forestry Students Symposium. So we have a quite history of connecting students in the forestry sector. What really defines IFSA is the diversity of people we have. So we connect students from over 60 countries. And actually we represent more than 5,000 people in the forestry programs, but actually this number can go a lot higher, and we're expecting to have a concrete number by the end of the year. I think something that is really crucial about IFSA is the importance that IFSA has for students at the beginning of their career. And something that I found quite interesting to be is that I have already met so many IFSA alumni at this very event, but I also find them all over the world. And actually Elaine here is also an IFSA alumni, and to me that is very interesting to see that people who are so advanced in their careers now have started out in IFSA, and I think that's really, really important. Our core part of IFSA is to connect people, and as I said, we have a quite large network of students coming from all over the world. So you can imagine how important it is to connect different cultures, to learn about people coming from different parts of the world, and to also learn about forestry practices across the globe. Other than that, we also enable students to engage globally. So a good example is this very event. We have over 15 people here networking, connecting with people, gaining new contacts, and that's something that is really valuable for us, and we really try to create opportunities for people to have international experience. And lastly, we provide capacity building activities and also learning opportunities for students, because we all know that education can sometimes be a bit outdated. So we try to bridge those gaps and really encourage our members to gain new experiences, to gain new knowledge, and this is really what IFSA is all about. So yes, I think really I find it interesting to see the importance of IFSA for young people and young students. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Elaine, thank you so much for launching and introducing 4YP. Is there anything else you'd like to add about where you see 4YP heading in the future?
Yeah, so in the short term, I'd love to see 4YP grow to over 1,000 active members by the end of the year, and we're well on our way. We just launched, and we already have 122 members on our Facebook group, so that's great. 4YP is ultimately meant to create an interactive network space where members promote their work and expertise, seek and give advice, and ultimately support each other on their career journeys. In the longer term, I would hope that 4YP members are more confident and better equipped to advance their careers. And as a result, I would expect 4YP members to pay forward their experiences in networking and career development, fostering the next generations in the sector. Additionally, I would love to see collaborative activities with IFSA to support youth advocacy as well as capacity development of students and early career professionals. I would also like 4YP to work with the different national and international associations on how to better recruit, activate, and engage their young professional members. And perhaps ambitious, I would personally, not just 4YP, but personally, love to work with others in the sector to establish a global professional network that could serve the broader forestry community and continue to engage 4YP members as they graduate and move on. I can envision how the experiences of 4YP members could enrich this membership and leadership of such a global network. So while global meetings like the WFC are fantastic opportunities, it only happens every 6 years. And I think it's about time that the different generations of the forest sector regularly connect and tackle global issues together through a global network for forestry professionals.
Awesome. Okay, so I have a few questions here, and then we will look to the audience and online to see if anyone has any. First one, I'm going to ask Maria and Magdalena, but I'll start with you, Maria. Do you think that work culture and other expectations have changed? And if so, do you think that organizations have adapted to that, or if they need to?
Yes, thank you for the question. And yes, I totally agree that organizations need to adapt, especially as we know that Gen Z and millennials are about to take over the workforce. In fact, by 2028, 58% of the workforce will be millennials and Gen Z. I also think that the next generation is rooted on purpose, and companies will need to showcase how their jobs align with the values of youth. There's also a big emphasis on work culture, and so youth will want to know if they have the support that they need in order to succeed, and if the organizations are also inclusive. And lastly, I think youth are also really aware that they want fair compensation. They want to be paid for volunteer opportunities and fair wages. Thank you.
All right, so Magdalena, do you think that students just graduating have maybe different expectations about work culture?
Well, Yes, I think that the work culture has changed, but it also needs to keep changing to make the employment in the sector more appealing to young people, because we know that young people actually who are starting in the forestry sector, or people who have entered the forestry sector and have found themselves here, are looking for meaning in their work. So the employment needs to align with that. We need to have a space for people to invest their time sustainably and meaningfully through their work. And also, something that is really important for young people who are in the sector is to have field work, to have outdoors work, to actually have a space to reconnect with nature, because that is what a lot of people are looking for through the forestry sector. And then also good working conditions. So that means fair wages, which is something that has been mentioned already, and really valuing the work of young people, because oftentimes for us it feels like the work we are doing is not valued on the same level. And then also having an inclusive and welcoming environment, because I think people here have already mentioned that they were the only women in the program or at their job, and I think the sector and the employment industry and the workplace needs to keep evolving and to be more inclusive and welcoming to people who are entering.
Great. We actually got an excellent question from online, which I'm going to ask, and I would like a response from each of you briefly. So it's from Amina, who we just saw. Despite the great efforts in making the sector interesting and hospitable, including many of the efforts discussed today, why are we seeing so few youth engaged in the field? Shireen, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question that I spend a lot of time thinking about. We're really poor in forestry, all of us, at marketing ourselves and communicating, really poor at it. And at the moment, because we have such a huge skills shortage in the UK, we've been working pretty hard with government to try and develop a whole skills package to get young people interested in green jobs, but it has to start when they're teenagers. And part of the problem is education over the last few decades has really concentrated on not destroying forests around the world, and forestry then has got a bad rap, and we've got to change that to make it seem as if it's not a bad thing to fell a tree. We need to get young people to understand that the forestry profession are those that can help manage forests, and sustainable forests are those that are going to keep the planet going, not destroy it. So it's tough, but it's a long road ahead. We've got to change a couple of decades of brainwashing, I think.
Ramon?
Thank you very much. I fully agree with Shireen. One of the big issues in forestry is marketing. I think the sector is very close. We don't communicate to other sectors, and that is an issue. The other issue, I think, is the demographics in general. So population has moved from rural areas into the cities, and therefore the jobs, the field jobs in forestry are in rural areas. And I think more effort should be done to communicate to people that there are opportunities in the local communities. And it's just a matter of being inventive, creative, and persistent to find them. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that as well, that lack of awareness is a really big challenge, as well as the negative perceptions that we've chatted about already. But I also think that employers need to adapt and begin to change how the workplace looks like and make sure they are being inclusive. So yeah, I think that's how we're going to make it more attractive to young talent.
I think another problem with the perception of forestry is that people are not really aware of what forestry is. So oftentimes when people are thinking about what career they want to go in, they hear about forestry and they go, oh, that's just timber, that's just logging. And I think we really need to work on communicating to young people what forestry is, what can you do in the forestry sector, because you can do so many things. There are so many different areas that you can go, and then people are not at all aware of that. And that can start, very early on, introducing even children to forestry and what forestry is, and I think that's going to be crucial.
Well, yes, obviously there is relatively low interest and low recruitment. I think there are more young people in the forest sector than we think. And I think part of this issue is visibility and relatability. I think so long as the visible representatives of the sector are a lot older, this means they're not necessarily relatable. And so to the younger generations. So I think one of the things we need to do is start putting some younger faces in positions of visibility to help make that sector more relatable to younger generations.
Great, all really good points. Something I feel very passionate about is spreading the word about forestry. Is there any questions? Oh, Dana has a question. Oh, did you send me a question? No.
Thanks. It's almost a follow-up to that one. So back home, and so in Canada, and it also is, we're seeing it in the United States, we're seeing this pipeline, so a lot of students entering faculty of forestry programs. And when it comes to more technical positions or field positions, they're entering the sector and then falling off after about 5 years. How do we create meaningful, inclusive environments for youth? When I work with clients, we talk about almost role-playing it. So what does it look like and what does it sound like? And I think, Maria, you sort of touched on it in adapting workplaces. What does that mean?
Shireen, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, I think we've still got a long way to go in a lot of countries for retaining women right through their professional career. So that's a big one. Women are still the main child care providers in families around the world. Having role models helps, and I always try and get myself out there to say, as women, you can do it. Changing workplaces, I think I can't speak for other countries necessarily, but in the UK, salaries, I think, need to be comparable with other professions, and I don't know that they are in forestry, and that perhaps puts young people off. But I still think a lot of the basic problem is knowledge. Like everyone here, I also fell into forestry. I didn't know about it. I didn't know it was a career. And I think everybody's like that. Unless you have a family member that works in it, you fall into it. I think we can adapt our workplaces, but we've got to get youth interested in this as a green career in the first place.
Ramon, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think adaptability into workplaces is something that comes from both ways. It has to be the employer as well as the employee. It cannot be a one-way street. It has to be a two-way street. Yeah, definitely it's knowledge. Definitely also is the environment itself. That is, we are living in a world that is constantly changing, so we have to be adaptable. And I think, yeah, jobs are changing, but probably not at the same speed. And also relate to the issue about salaries, especially in developing countries. Rural jobs are not as well paid as jobs in the city, so people tend to migrate because they can just pursue a better income in the city. So there is a need to push for an increase in salaries, especially for rural areas.
Anyone else want to take a stab at that one?
Maybe I can add very shortly that from the student perspective, it's also really needed to adapt the education to that, because of course it's not just needed that we attract young students to enter the forestry program, but our education needs to really align with what we want to promote forestry as. So.
And maybe I just add that it's not just about a job. I think it's about a career. And I think if we think about how someone can come in, but then also grow and progress as a career and not just have a one-off job, this may also help change perspectives. Because with a career, this includes taking into consideration continuous on-the-job training as you grow, work-life balance, various benefits, and this sort of thing. And I think so often young people are focused on just the job. And I think it is the responsibility of an employer or even more well-established people in the sector to really think about how to create careers for young people, not just jobs for young people.
If I could just add, the research shows that young people are moving about between jobs much more often, and I actually see that as a real plus. This brings diversity. you don't have a job for life with one employer anymore, and young people don't expect that. I see that as a real positive. It means you bring fresh ideas from one job to the other, and employers should welcome that.
Thank you. Did you have a question? Can we get a mic? Sorry.
Thank you. My name is Khalil Adar from Israel. I'm the director of the forest department in the northern region, working 25 years in Kakal JNF. First, I want to salute you all for initiating, creating this very important session. The conference is important. Sharing knowledge is very important, but sharing the enthusiasm of recruiting and the importance of recruiting new generation of foresters is the most important, I think. By the way, with me in the delegation from Israel, there should have been a young forester, Chen Karu, 4 months only in the job. He's working with me in the department. We worked together on the presentation that I gave 3 days ago. Unfortunately, our CEO didn't hear the panel here, and 4 days before the flight, he canceled his participation because he's young and new, and he changed the delegation. I was so happy that we did a step forward in joining new foresters to this important conference. As a professional foresters, you all know that when we look at the trees and the healthy forest, we understand the importance of age distribution. But when it comes to personal organization, age distribution, it's way not normal. So we're professional at looking at the trees, but not inside our organization, and what you said here is most important. The last point I want to say is that besides newcomers, new foresters coming with new ideas, technology, you're coming with your spirit, your personal spirit, enthusiasm, and most of all, don't forget your personal, your additive value is your personality. And we need to widen, besides the professional aspects and the help you could bring us into the forestry field, you bring yourself. Don't forget it, and don't be shy. Thank you very much.
Great comments, and the one instance where maybe too much old growth. Need some young forest growing in here. Yeah. Anyone want to comment? Or we have a bunch of questions. There's a question in the back there. Make sure you get a microphone, please.
Hard to see them.
Yeah, thank you. And can you just introduce yourself and where you're from?
Hi. My name is Jessica Mzamindo. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm representing Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture. I'm also a lecturer in the Natural Resources Department back home in Zimbabwe at Marondera University of Agriculture Technology. I think my question is to all the panelists. I'm sure one of them can answer me on that one. I would like to know if they can be an opportunity for young professionals or for our students in the forestry program to get an exchange program. I've noticed that many students don't like forestry because they don't have any idea what they're gonna do. They don't see it as lucrative, like how you guys are saying it. Like when I'm just hearing it here, everyone is talking about forestry. It looks like it's a very good opportunity for students to venture into. So I think lack of exposure and the international know-how, they have the theoretic idea, but the practical idea, I'm sure it's lacking. So can we have some sort of link where we can create exchange programs so that maybe some African students can go for a 1-month program, and maybe UK or any other Europe students can also join into our department so that we exchange like information. I don't know if we can have such platform where young people can do that interaction. Thank you.
That's a really great question, idea. I know that in the past there have been connections between Canada and the UK, and I think there was talk of involving New Zealand or Australia in that. Terry's nodding. But yeah, do any of you have any information about other programs or ideas?
I mean, I can't speak to direct exchange programs. I think it's a great idea. But I will say, for climate smart agriculture, agroforestry is included in that. And that's definitely a way for the agriculture sector and the forest sector to work together, which is needed if we want to halt deforestation and restore land. These are two sectors that have to work very closely together. So while 4YP in its infancy can't offer an exchange program, what it does offer is a network to various young professionals around who can provide solutions or connections. I myself am an agroforestry officer at FAO, so I'm happy to provide inputs. And I know another one of our speakers in the last session, Amina, also an agroforestry in Kenya, who would probably also be more than happy to at least provide online support. And hopefully, as our membership grows and maybe as we interact with other associations, we can create those opportunities for in-person exchange.
Anyone else?
And I would also like to add that you should follow us on Instagram or check out our website at pltcanada.org, because we always have online networking opportunities, and you never know, that could lead to something else.
And maybe I can add, again, we also don't have exchange programs because that is not in our ability to do, but we have a lot of opportunities for students all over the world to engage in many activities. So in Africa, for an example, we have had delegations now at UNCCD, for an example. Also at UNEA, we had someone, stuff like that we can do. We also have regional meetings in Africa that connect different countries in Africa together, and then you can network and share about forestry practices in your countries. So we have some activities like that. They're not 1 month long, but I think they're still valuable experiences.
Excellent.
And the ITTO Fellowship Program has financially supported not field stories or study tours. Of course, we do not offer the facility to arrange that for you, but if you have something already in mind and you work for it, you can submit your application for that. Thank you.
So we're getting pretty close to the end of this session, but there's one question that I do want to ask everyone sitting up here today. So based on the last 2 hours of discussion, what's one practical action item that we can strive to implement to empower youth and young professionals as a sector before the next WFC? So there's a timeline on this. What's one thing we can do? Elaine, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think, as I've been saying all along, make young professionals visible. And if you're not ready to put them as an expert on a panel or to give a keynote presentation, give them the opportunity to moderate. Give them the opportunity to introduce or chair an event, but put them out there, give them experience. We have to give young people the opportunity to succeed and fail. And obviously we can mitigate the failing by prepping them, giving them mentorship and guiding them before they step up to the plate. But if they don't do so well, that's fine. It's a learning experience. They will do better next time. But we have to build the experience in the sector, and that starts with giving opportunities.
Go ahead.
Should I go next?
Yes, please.
So actually something that really stuck with me during the first panel, which I thought was amazing, was that all of the people on the panel were not, forestry was not their first choice. That really stuck with me because how can we then make people have forestry as their first choice? I think that's something that we really need to work towards. How do we communicate the importance of forestry? How do we communicate what can we do in the forestry sector? And then the second thing, also something that was said during the first panel, I think by Elaine, but also others, is that we really need to communicate with our peers, not just seniors or students, but also, okay, we are students in my organization, but how do we need to communicate with each other. And I don't have a wall of fame like Lacey, but if I did, it would be people from my organization who have been supporting me and encouraging me through this whole event. And I think that's something really important, to have people, to have your students, other students encourage each other, I think is going to be really crucial.
And from my end, it's really about creating opportunities with mentorship, because we know how impactful that can be. And also for folks that have some experience to be that mentor. And I know a couple of people have already mentioned this, but it's a really rewarding experience. And if more than anything, it can help retain a new talent as well.
Well, I believe one point of action could be like sharing more success stories of young people entering into a forestry career. In ITTO, we do that. We put some stories on our website, on our quarterly newsletter, the Tropical Forest Update, which relates what young foresters are doing in the field. And another point of action will be that also share these stories with other sectors. For example, a forester who is working on specific lesser used timber species that can be applied in architecture or construction. So to create more connections and opportunities.
Well, with me, actually, I'd turn it on its head. It's I need you more than you need me, frankly. I couldn't do my job without the creative ideas, the energy that young people bring to my institute and to our sector. So it's not something I want to do differently. I want you to keep putting yourselves out there. I could not do my job without you.
Shireen, can I follow up on that, actually? Because that's and pardon me for kind of butting in there. So how do you share that attitude with other senior professionals who maybe don't feel the same way you do?
Well, maybe we're lucky in the UK. Throughout my career, I've always had kindness and support and patience from my older peers who never for 1 second hesitated in their generosity in giving advice. I haven't, of course, I've suffered sexism when I was young, not now, like anybody would, a female in forestry, but by giving an example, but to get yourselves out there, just as somebody said in the first session in the audience, demand it. It's your right. I could not do my job without your energy and creativity.
Great. I've been vigorously taking notes about all the important messages that have been shared here. So I'm going to wrap up and close this session. Hopefully it won't be the last of its kind. So not only do youth and young professionals need support, but the sector needs them. I thought it was really interesting that all three of the first presentations indicated that these programs exist because there's a workforce shortage. And that is something that is fairly recent and completely different than when I started my career. So it really is interesting to see jobs go unfilled because there is a lack of interest in pursuing forestry as a career. So the sector needs youth to fill jobs, to bring new ideas, and to take care of their future forests. They are the ones invested, and they're the ones who are going to have to solve the future's problems. It's also come across several times that it's important for us to build more bridges between generations, but also learn from each other. Both sides have something to give. We need to improve the reputation of the forest sector, tell the good stories, there are so many of them, change the stereotypes and do more outreach so that people consider forestry as their first choice instead of oh, I can get a job in this. It's really a progression, people's careers. So not only do we need to recruit and provide opportunities to those seeking their first jobs, but we have to give them reasons to stay and not be taken away by other higher paying or sectors with maybe a better work-life balance. We need to meet the needs and expectations of those entering the workforce. I would have to remind you to join 4YP, join us online, check out the website. And also I need to give a shout out to two of the other board members who aren't here today, Yemi and Juliet, who've been vigorously sharing info online live during this event. So thank you to them. And just to sum up the actions that were shared. So we need to increase the visibility of young professionals, make it normal for them to be around on panels and sharing the expertise that they bring. Communicate the importance of forestry, be champions ourselves, for ourselves and for others. Increase mentorship, because that really seems to be the way to get people to stay in and join the sector, helping them move along. Share the success stories of youth. Recognize the value of having different perspectives, including ages, around the table, and normalize youth involvement. So maybe at the next World Forestry Congress, we don't need to have sessions especially for youth and young professionals, but they will be in the sessions sharing the expertise that they bring to the table and making it normal to see them up there. So with that, thank you all for joining us. Thank you to the panel. Amazing. And we'll see you around. Thank you.